and it allows you, oh, just got a pop-up that we're being recorded, and it allows you to maybe move a little faster, depending on how you pick up on things. But the nice thing about banking is that you really could come out of high school and start to learn it and become, you know, a region manager. You can really go far. So in a bank branch, there's the basic teller, and that role, you get a lot of training on compliance, federal regulation. Obviously, we're being trusted with very sensitive data. So if you like money handling and you like customer service, you know, it's just a twist on the basic retail or food service job where the customer, the product is the safekeeping of their money, different kinds of accounts. And then you can learn to become a banker, become a lender, business banking, branch management. There's lots of ways to continue to grow. You can then cross over to financial analysis, underwriting, once you start to learn about lending. So any of you who are interested in finance, that's a route. Then of course there's things like wealth management when we have sort of our high value clients that are looking for products to invest their money in. That's a little bit of a different, it's not our specialty as a community bank, but we have departments like that. And then of course there's commercial banking and lending, and then consumer. So there's lots of opportunities either from the area that you're from, should you move back there, or this area where you're going to school. Also, let me say that once you're in the banking world, there's a lot of opportunity to continue to grow and move to different banks and get a lot of experience. Corporate banks, smaller banks, credit unions, you know, and they all have a slightly different shape and feel. And that's really personal. Some people it's all about the money. Some people it's all about the values of the organization. Some people it's their lifestyle. So, you know, there's banks are always going to be here. So there's something stable about it that is also appealing. But, you know, maybe stability is not the most attractive thing at this point in your career, you know, but the other side of it is also there's so much to learn, right? That you can take what you learn there and carry it through in a lot of different directions. My personal story is I didn't start out in banking at all. I just started working in banking 4 years ago. I knew nothing about banking or finance. And I came to learning about business later in my life, and I did a big career pivot. And for me, I have to work for an organization that I believe in the values of. Otherwise it wouldn't work for me, because of course I need money and I need to contribute to keeping my family stable, but I wouldn't do that unless it was absolutely necessary at the expense of my personal values. So I thought that I would talk just very briefly, give you a little bit of advice. And then I wanted to open it up and hear from you all. I'm very curious how you're feeling about the environment right now as a learner and as a job seeker. But I first wanted to just give you three, like I wanted to water it down to what are the three most important tips really for what to pay attention to. Maybe in every phase of your journey, you know, as a student right now, as you're maybe navigating, figuring out even what you might want to do professionally. That's not a simple question. I remember it well myself, and how frightening it is to have to make a choice and to commit. For those of you who know what you want, that's great. That's such an advantage to actually, that's just a lovely gift that if you know what you want to commit to. I would say that my number one tip is learning what your core values are and understanding them. I can't tell you how important that is in every decision you make for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean you're not going to be flexible on things, but if you don't know what your values are, that's a great place to start. What are my core values? What means the most to me? Kind of like the icebreaker today was a great little exercise to think about that. What is my motivator? Okay, why is that my motivator? What do I value? And not judging it, right? Like, look at what it is and see what that tells you about what's valuable to you. There are lots of different ways. I know Cal Poly used to be really big on doing strength finders. Do you still get an opportunity to do that when you enter as freshmen? It might just be with the College of Business, I don't know. But if you don't know about strength finders, that's just a really neat exercise to figure out. There's these different categories. That's a nice way to look at your values. There are things like, there's all kinds of core value exercises. There are personality tests. There's lots of fun ways to look at who you are and what makes you tick. And I encourage you to experiment with that and to document for yourself. What are your core values right now? Maybe it's hard to narrow it down to, 3 to 5. Maybe you have 10 when you look at a list of sample core values and you see so many, and then just keep narrowing it down to really start to see who you are. My next tip is really listening and learning. I think that we're so busy trying to prove ourselves and so busy trying to achieve that we might forget that some of the most important steps forward for me have come from me stopping and just listening and watching so that I can understand how things work better, so that I can really empathize and see where things are coming from, so that I can know how to respond. I'm someone who has benefited greatly from listening to other people's stories. I love people's stories, but I learned so much from hearing how other people have gone about doing what they do, learning why they do it, what are their core values, learning what makes them tick, especially people that are different from me. I get a lot out of that. So I encourage you to enjoy that, not be afraid of that it's different from you, and just listen and see what the takeaways are. Another thing to listen for, not just the story itself, but listening to how people take action, listening to how they communicate, listening to the manners that, their tone, their vocabulary. Those are the little things that can make a difference in what kind of effect we have. I don't mean like impressing people. Of course that's important, but if we're worried about impressing people, we're probably going to go down a rabbit hole that is going to be the wrong focus. If we're really watching people that we find effective, people you admire, and you find are really good communicators, and you watch how they do that, there's so much to learn from that. It's like you can kind of absorb, you can borrow those traits and try them and see, because you're getting to develop who you are as a communicator. You're early in this process, so it's fun to try that on. And the last tip, the third one I wanted to mention, was to navigate thoughtfully. Learning how to navigate and to do it thoughtfully. Navigate change thoughtfully. I mean, if 2020 has taught us anything, it's that life is going to throw change at us. It maybe doesn't happen quite as radically all the time as it feels right now, but it's always changing. And change, my first reaction to change is terrible. Change is terrifying to me. And yet, I know that I have successfully navigated tremendous change in my life. And when I think about how I've been able to do that and who the people I admire, and when I watch them navigate change, the key factor is moving beyond my reaction and thoughtfully assessing so that I can then be proactive. When I'm reacting, I just get emotional. And it's bad. It doesn't work well. When I was assigned to a new manager and had a whole new team and a whole new job a year ago, I didn't navigate that very well for the first, I would say, 6 weeks. Thankfully, it was only 6 weeks, right? So I didn't do any lasting damage, but I could have if I had stayed in a reactive mode, because I was reacting to the fact that it was so different from what I had before. And that was human and natural. I can react at home, but then when I'm in the workplace, I've got to be very thoughtful and navigate carefully, right? Cautiously, so that I can be wise, right? I wish I knew like the perfect recipe for how to do that well. I think every scenario calls for it a little differently. And there's certainly people, you know, I'm a very emotional person. So I'm always going to have like a strong emotional reaction. So I'm never going to be as graceful as other people. And I know that about myself. So it takes a little more effort for me to keep my mouth closed and, you know, temper my reaction while I process. But, you know, I've learned tools to do that. I've learned how to talk myself through that, how to prepare mentally beforehand, before I walk into the meeting, right? So you, as you notice, how have you been adapting to change, radical change this year? That's a good indicator of how are you going to adapt in the workplace to change, because in the workplace, change is thrown at us all the time. All the time. We cannot control trends or, you know, other employees, colleagues, customer reactions. Like there's just so many things out of our control. So observing that about yourself and learning some tools for how to navigate it as carefully as possible is, I think, going to be incredibly useful to you. So I didn't want to just lecture you. I'm actually really curious to hear from you, but you can also ask me any questions you want. I'm curious to hear, what are your thoughts on, first of all, what it's like to be studying in this kind of environment, and what it's making you think about your futures. Would anybody like to, or how do you want to do this? Do you want to, Valeria, do you want to moderate, or how do you want to, do you guys just want to unmute yourselves and speak up?
Yeah, I think we could definitely do that. Whoever wants to speak can share. And if you want, we can go in breakout rooms, whatever works for you, works for us.
I'd love for us all to be together, unless you think that's going to discourage you all from talking.
I think this group is small enough, yeah.
Okay. So let me just ask, how are you feeling about this studying in this kind of circumstance? And, you know, I'm not going to be talking to anybody in charge at Cal Poly, so you can tell me the truth. I'm curious what is this like for you? Because some of you had a taste of what it was like before the pandemic, and some of you did not, obviously. Freshmen did not. So I'm curious.
I can go first. I felt that going, you know, I took online classes before, but now it's just like everything online. I think you get to learn to value more the human interaction. It's not the same, you know, trying to make the class environment sitting in front of the screen for 6 hours straight. I mean, now you do, or at least I do miss, you know, talking with the instructors. Although I noticed that also the professors feel the same way. So some of them, instead of if it's a live class, instead of just going straight to the lecture, they do spend a few minutes just talking and getting to know their students, which I do appreciate, because you miss that kind of stuff on this change.
Definitely. Definitely.
I can go. Oh,
Yeah.
wait,
Jessica.
did someone else want to go? Or was it just me? Oh. I was gonna say studying has been kind of the same. It's just difficult because like our study habits, like typically we would be on campus going to the library to study, but it's just like now it's just you have to stay home, and it's so difficult, like just moving around spaces to try and like make yourself feel comfortable with studying. And then yeah, just kind of like what Anna said, like about online classes, it's been difficult because like it's straining because you're already on the computer for so long, and trying to be like having those face-to-face interactions with other people is difficult, even on Zoom, like just trying to be like, hey,
Yeah.
how are you all doing? Like it's just different, especially if you're already like mentally fatigued and also like Zoom fatigue. And then in terms of like me graduating, like I like, for some people that are graduating, I feel like it's hard too, because like they can't in this economy right now, like it's so hard to find a job because like everyone's being basically unemployed. So that's been difficult, like for people to see like, oh, what am I going to do after college? Like I'm just going to graduate, and like what am I going to do after that? So that's like, that's mentally like, or just like scary in general for anyone. But yeah, handling it good, somewhat.
Thank you for sharing that. Oh, I that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
Are you a New York Yankees fan? I see a Yankees cap is behind you.
I have a Giants cap too, and a Dodgers cap. I just have a lot of.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you're probably happy. Okay, nice.
Yeah. Universal, multicultural.
Yeah, you embrace all teams. Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Well, what do you guys think is, so you're hearing like everybody's out of work and how am I going to get a job? Is that a fear for a lot of you? Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen to the workplace?
I think there might be like a big switch in the type of jobs that were available before and that are going to be available now. I recently switched, kind of like changed my focus from accounting to more marketing. And because I did it so late in the game, yeah, all my marketing kind of classes have been online. And so I know like the traditional marketing jobs are going to be very different now. They're going to be very based on like social media and online stuff. So it's really been a little weird. I know that probably the job that I originally like imagined is probably not going to be what I end up doing. Yeah, I just think that a lot of jobs are going to switch to be suitable for online, which is not what I was expecting when I first started, but yeah.
That's interesting. And I think that what we're noticing, those of us, obviously I've been working remotely since March, like you've all been studying remotely since March. And I think a lot of us that are used to working with colleagues really miss being in person with people, the way Jessica was saying, like studying with people and being in different spaces and moving around instead of, trapped in my one room and everybody else in my household, like in school or at work in another room. I mean, it's definitely, yeah, I think that, does anybody else have a thought about how things might change?
I noticed, for example, last year I went to the career fair, and when I spoke with some of the recruiters, I get the feedback that mostly of the remote work opportunities were for upper level either
Yeah,
senior, I'm an
definitely.
accounting concentration. So they were just limited to, senior accountants or partners at each of the firms. Now with this new online format, I definitely see that more, maybe, and hopefully more companies are going to have more entry-level positions for people to work from home. I'm pretty sure the businesses are going to find out that they can save lots of money on leasing buildings, entire buildings, by allowing some of the employees to work from home and being more flexible on that type. But with that, I mean, there comes more responsibility. I mean, you have to train the work that to know that you're working and you are not just staying at home. So that's kind of the part that we as future employees we have to work on. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I think that companies are obviously going to rethink this idea that everybody has to be 40 hours on site in an office to be productive. And again, I don't know how that will evolve and change us as a culture, but we're still going to crave connection. That seems to be a basic human need. And yet the reality is that, like Anna, you're the perfect example. You've got kids at home. They're saying, here's like, oh, women are the ones who are having to give up their jobs right now because their kids are having to school from home and they can't work and help the kids with school at the same time. So I don't know how this is all going to change our culture, but I think there's the good and there's the negative side of maybe certain jobs, the idea of certain jobs are going away, and the positive side that maybe there's going to be more flexibility and creativity in how jobs are structured. Certainly our bank, nobody worked remotely before March. Nobody, it was really looked down upon. Like you had to be in the office. And now the only people working in the office are the people in the branches. So the entire, there's 1,000 people at least that are working remotely, all HR, all finance, all marketing, all everything, all financial analysis, all underwriting, all of that, unless you're customer facing. So that's really changed things. I think my curiosity is, how are we going to use young talent? Because young talent is, to me, always the exciting thing about what you can add to an organization. You bring in new ideas, you bring in fresh perspective, and it's so fun to mentor young talent and, and then create that diversity of generational diversity on a team. But how are we going to do that when we're still working remotely? Like I said at the beginning of this, our internship program, we haven't really figured out how are we going to do that effectively. We couldn't do it at all in 2020 because it just didn't seem possible. But now that maybe we can start to look towards, okay, how are we going to have a starting marketing position or a starting accounting position and do that remotely? How are we going to mentor someone through that in this kind of format? So, I'm hopeful because I don't think we stop. That's, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So we've all figured out, like, look at how your professors had to figure out so quickly how to teach online. Unless they already had a class that was online only, they had never done anything like that in their life. They had to figure out, they had to pivot so fast, just as, a lot of us in the workforce did. And I think we will be part of creating something new in workplace culture. Just not sure where it's going yet. Any other thoughts on that? Anybody have some ideas? Yeah. Jessica.
I just had something to add to what you said about internships. My internship for this past summer, I did it virtually, and at first I was kind of resistant to this because I was like, oh, it's going to be very different. It's not going to be the same experience that I would get. But definitely it was like a way different experience, but like in a positive side, because like our world is kind of changing towards technology more as well. So it was really nice seeing like the people in the company trying to adapt to that as well. Just because like COVID, like it's already really quick to change. But there's not really like resistance to change because people can't really resist COVID. Like they all have to go through that. So I thought that was really cool, like seeing how they tried to implement like the same face-to-face activities virtually, and just like being there for the intern more. So having more having more like conversations on Skype or on Zoom, just to get that face-to-face interaction, but also to check up on like our physical and mental health as well.
That's fantastic.
So that was cool.
That's a great example of that idea of, you know, watching people adapt and navigate change. And that's one of the best things about an internship, is that you're actually watching people in the workplace. You know, you get to actually observe it and work alongside it virtually or in reality. So that's fantastic. Where did you intern?
I interned at Lockheed Martin.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously, they're technologically very advanced already, you know, lots of engineering there, but even so, not used to doing whatever they were doing in that way. I'm putting my contact information, by the way, folks, on the chat, because I really encourage you to reach out to me anytime if you have questions, anything, you know, if I can help you or shed some light on something, I'm happy to. So that's really neat. What did you take away from how they were adapting?
Me? Oh.
Yeah,
I took away like, I guess just seeing how people like adapted to it. Like for me, I would be like, oh no, I don't like that change. But just seeing them like do it in a really effective way, but also like communicating with others still and being able to do their job efficiently. I thought that was really like interesting to see how they were all still working. Like it seemed like they were used to technology already. But I still saw some aspects of like weaknesses within them, like trying to figure out how to implement it in a virtual setting. Cause I know this was the first time they did their internship virtually, but they still wanted like interns to be able to have this experience. So I thought that was really cool. And just like, it just seemed like I was working there, like, even though it took a while to kind of adapt to it, but like, I don't know, I thought that they did a pretty good job with that. But yeah, I think I worked on like some change stuff too, like implementing like maybe working from home virtually half the time and then coming back into the office a few times a week. So that was pretty cool, seeing the change, or not seeing the change, but implementing it and like promoting it to the benefits team and seeing what they can do about that.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, you got to be part of a cool project. That's fantastic. And of course, most companies have a kind of change management area, right? Because companies are always going through some kind of change. So that's very cool. Wow, I think that was really valuable, Jessica, what you got to experience. I'm impressed with that. What else? What are your thoughts? Anyone else? What's the biggest fear right now, moving forward?
I feel like for me, like I've always tried to stay really productive. But now that I don't get to exactly necessarily go outside or, you know, be with people, like I feel like I need to start not managing my time better, but just setting time aside for just me, where I don't do anything, so that when I do work on all the responsibilities I have, I'm there like 100%.
Nice.
So I guess productivity, yeah.
Well, that's a really nice insight that, again, you're kind of learning about yourself And yeah, it's like, it's isolating. Are you on campus and you can't go outside? Are you in the dorms?
My home.
You're-
Yeah, home in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Living with my family. And
Got it.
I can't really go out because I have to be looking at my computer, you know, basically the entire day. Like apart from school, I have like a job and it's all online. So.
Wow. That is really hard. That's a lot of computer time.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I'm at my computer all day, but I get up, I go in the backyard, I do some of my phone calls, walking around a little bit. Yeah, this is the part that could drive us nuts. That's interesting. Is anybody on campus? I'm curious. Anybody in this club on campus? No. I know some freshmen are on campus.
Yeah, I'm on campus.
Oh, so tell us about that, Aiden.
It's really interesting just because, especially as being a first year, like I don't have any classes in person. But it's just it's honestly been kind of nice just to get, I guess, familiar with like the surroundings here in SLO. I was definitely hesitant to come just with everything going on. And with the additional cost of just coming to live here without having in-person classes. But yeah, I'm definitely glad that I came. It's definitely still obviously a confusing time, but it's been nice to just meet some people here on campus and, like I said, just get familiar with everything.
I think that's great. I think that's great that that's been an option. And that, again, it's not going to be for your whole 4 years, right? So it's like, and you will have all been through this together. I mean, that's what I keep holding on to for my own son, who's a freshman and doing it from his bedroom at home right now. Not at Cal Poly, but at a different university where they didn't bring the students back. But I think they're gonna try in winter. And yeah, that's great. So, well, I've taken up a lot of your time. Does anybody have any questions for me before I let you go?
Are you all hiring by any chance during like this time or no?
Yes, I am hiring all day long, every day. I am hiring. I have some senior positions and some entry-level positions. I do not have good positions for someone who is currently in school, because all of the positions I have, they're just too much of a time commitment for someone who's currently in school. Now, that's not always the case, and will not always be the case, but just currently, otherwise I'd be like, okay, I want you all to apply for this. Like I've got a couple of retail positions in SLO. It's just they're not, they wouldn't work well with someone handling a Cal Poly schedule. That's what's always been best for Cal Poly students. For what I've been hiring in the past has been either an internship where we could work with your school schedule, or summer work. But what'll be nice is that, especially if you've been in the business classes, or not even if you weren't in business classes but you're interested in business, then the retail spots are a great place to start, like fresh out of school. If you don't get like a company position somewhere, it's a great place to just get started and start connecting with your community and working in the branch. And I will definitely share with you. I'll send, if I have openings in the spring for things as it gets towards your graduation, for sure. Any other questions?
What do you used to do before coming into mechanics bank?
Good question. I was an actress, believe it or not, for a long time. So I had a whole career in the theater. And then I was a teacher of acting to professionals. And I was a professor. I've had a lot of chapters. So I get a little bored. So I have to kind of keep, it seems crazy. And I've been a meeting facilitator. So all of it is tied to my connection with people. And recruiting, I've only been doing full-time recruiting for the past year. I had a whole community relationships position and a lot of outreach with my previous position at the bank. But this is very well suited to me because I get to meet so many different kinds of people, and I get to partner with all these different areas of the bank. So it's very fun to partner with the managers and try to figure out what would be a great addition to their team. So it's fun. I enjoy it. I also really encourage you not to be afraid of making a decision and it being the be all end all. You're stuck and trapped. It's just not how life works. I mean, you can always adapt. You want to be sensible about it. You know, you don't want to just quit things with no idea how you're going to navigate finding your next situation, but you can I made a dramatic change at 50 years old, dramatic life career change, and it was totally worth it, totally worth it. I'm really glad I followed my interests and my heart. Yeah, thanks for asking.
That's very nice. Thank you for sharing.
Sure. All right, you guys, this was fun. I look forward to seeing you in person. Maybe we'll be seeing people in person by spring. Wouldn't that be nice? Stay on this, stay taking good care of yourself and your loved ones. You know, that's all you can do, and keep learning and growing and making the best of this. You know, you will become great leaders because of what you're going through now.
Thank you so much, Susan, for coming and talking to us. I thought this was a great conversation. We always love having you here and talking about not just Mechanics Bank, but just like in general life. But yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks you guys. Have a great rest of it's almost Friday. Yay. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, I don't know if they're still here. Okay, for those of you that are still here, we're gonna